Hello, 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 everybody. All right, let me turn my volume down. I've got like two laptops going. Let me make sure I'm suited and booted. Gonna hang out for a second and wait for everyone to join me. I hope you're having a great day. Hello, hello. We're gonna get started here in just a minute. We're gonna wait for some people to come. I know we just Hey, Catherine. I know we just finished with Paige's mini class, which, I mean, come on. Paige has the greatest layouts ever. Hello, everybody. We're going to hang out for just a second. Let everybody pop on. So glad you're here. Hope you're suited and booted, got your materials. We're going to take a quick little breather, get yourself a sip of something, a little snacky snack. If you were watching Paige's class, she was able to do all that real quickly in an hour. I'm going to take over for the next 2 hours. We're going to be talking about layering and all that. Hello, everybody. The chats are popping up fast and furious. I'm going to be looking, I'm actually looking at like multiple screens right now. So I have a laptop here. I got my phone here. I got another laptop here. So I got to make sure we are good to go. Hello, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. We got Lisa and Tammy and Linda. Oh my goodness, and Michelle and Gloria. Hello, Gloria. How are you? There's a lot of you that are from the Victoria Marie Scrap Boss community that are here. Hello, hello. I'm so glad you guys are here participating in this awesome event. Let me tell you, this has been a weekend jam-packed of creative inspiration, ideas, having fun with product, getting to chat one-on-one with fantastic designers. I mean, my fellow instructors, Vicky, Megan, Lael, I mean, just killing it, knocking out the park. And then you have people like Jana who's coming in, representing Simple Stories, and you have Angie Blum who's doing beautiful. I mean, just there's so many things going on this weekend. Now I'm getting ready to kind of help you wrap it up. We're going to do some layering, and then after this, I will be on the Facebook group live where you can ask me some questions and that type of thing, and we'll just put a nice, neat bow. And then, of course, Catherine and Jenna will be on to wrap up the whole 9, and it's going to be fantastic. So I hope you brought your energy. No low energy for the next 2 hours. We're going to get into this. We've got 2 projects that we're making today. One is a 2-page 12 by 12 layout, and one is an 8.5 by 11. So we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to grab a swig of water. I got water today. No coffee, because you guys already know I'm already energetic, so I don't need any more coffee. So I'm going to take a sip of water while you guys are all popping in. If you were playing along with Paige over the past hour, I hope that you will give some of her stitching ideas and stuff a try, because that just takes the layout to the next level. So, alrighty. So excited to have you guys here. Hello, Jenny. The comments are just coming in fast, fast, fast. Hey, Anne-Marie, what's going on? Hello. Let me know where you are hailing from. Go ahead and pop in the chat. Say a hello. We're going to get started. One of the things there's a few things I want you to keep in mind before we start the last class of the weekend. Number 1, you should have received, and I know that we talked about this already. I'm actually going to hold this up and then I'll show it again. You should have received the revised instructions for this class. So if you've been following and you read the email and stuff, we had a little snafu, but everything's all good. Revise the instructions, revise the projects. You're all good. So if you haven't printed the revised instructions, those are available in the Facebook group. And actually, Catherine sent out an email to that effect as well a few days ago. So hopefully everyone has the new directions. The design of today's projects didn't change all that much. I'll point out where there are probably some slight differences between what you originally got in your instructions and the revised instructions. I worked really hard to make sure that the layout stayed consistent with the original design. So if you haven't already, make sure you print out the new revised instructions, okay? Number 2, considering instructions. I'm one of those creatives that tends to throw the instructions out the door when I'm creating. So, in other words, if you're following along today, because I know some of you are going to observe and come back later and watch and create. Some of you are going to be creating with me as I'm making today's projects. But here's the thing. As creatives, you need to feel empowered to go your own way. So if you're starting to feel a different way, if your creativity is pulling you in a different direction, go for it. I love to see variations on designs. My role today is just to impart some great tips for layering and that type of thing today. And wherever you want to go with this, if you want to keep it the way that it's designed for the class, wonderful. If you want to go in a different direction, that's okay too, all right? This is your weekend. You do your thing. You do you, boo, okay? So make sure you have the instructions. Follow along with me. I'm going to walk you through step by step so that you don't get lost. I'm also going to be trying to look for questions in the chat. And so if I don't get to your question, join me afterwards. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can, and then I'm going to stay on after the Facebook after party to answer any questions, and then I'll pop back into the group throughout the week and try to grab any questions. Usually at the end of these things, there's lots of comments and stuff to search through, so I may not always see everybody, but I'm going to try as hard as I can to answer as many questions, or you can reach out to me on my socials, and I'll be happy to answer your question, okay? So just deep breath. Have your little stuff out, get your little drink, your little snack, and just follow along. Particularly when it comes to measurements of stuff, I'm not a secret here, just PS. I don't follow measurements exactly because I don't measure stuff that well. I'm kind of like, that looks good. But don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Alrighty. So we said instructions, follow along. I got my little list here. And then, of course, I said creative freedom. This is your project. Have fun with it. We're going to do some fall themed stuff. So we're diving into some nice, rich fall colors. Have some navy blues in it and stuff. You guys are going to love that. And then also, more importantly, let's have some fun. Okay? So if you are ready to get with it, give me a thumbs up. Give me an emoji. Do something in the chat. Let me know you are excited and ready to go. And speaking of the chat, I'm going to scroll through real quick because these are coming in fast and furious. We have so many fantastic people from all over the world, and that's what's incredible about these events, because we can all come together in ways that maybe we haven't before. So we have Natalia, we've got Gail, I'm just scrolling through, and Kathleen, Jocelyn, Natalie, Galinda, Julie, hello. You are welcome for the new directions. It's no problem whatsoever. Galinda, hello, hello. Caroline, oh my gosh, Nancy, Christy, Lynn, everybody's in the house tonight, right? So we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to actually rearrange some things here on my desk so that I can see not only comments, but also have some space to work. You were, of course, in your instructions, given all this stuff, all the details of things that you need for this class. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen so you can see my desktop, and you'll still be able to see me as well when I do this. So let me do that. That transition might take just a second to change. Let me know in the chat if you have been having a lot of fun. Let me know. I love all the emojis. Pop up an emoji. Let me know if you've been having fun. Hey, Carrie, what's going on? Yes, give me a little emoji, whatever that emoji may be. Be a thumbs up, happy face, heart. Let me know you're having a good time this weekend. Before we get started, I just have to say, and I said it during my live for the Meet the Instructor, make sure you guys give a huge shout out and a round of applause to Catherine, the Scrapbook and Cards Today team, all of our instructors, all of our sponsors, everyone who is involved in making this event happen. I always tell people it's one thing putting together an in-person event, and it's another thing putting together a virtual event. They're both hard work, but certainly for those of us who do events like this, whether it's online crops or online events like this or classes or whatnot, we do it with a lot of love. So again, huge shout out to Catherine and the team who just worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this all happen. So I hope you've had a fantastic weekend. Alrighty, so right now you should be seeing my desktop. I'm gonna move this laptop out the way. I'm all like tech savvy over here. And we've got some beautiful goodies, which you've already seen. So today we're going to be making two layouts. We've got the Photo Play Autumn Greetings. This was designed by Becky Moore, absolutely beautiful. We're going to be using some of the pattern papers, and we're going to be using the sticker sheet. So make sure you have that well ready to go. Also included was your, I love Basil. Let me know if you're in love with Basil cardstock, because I absolutely love it. So you have 2 sheets of Basil textured white cardstock. This is by far some of my favorite cardstock, textured cardstock. I absolutely love it. So we're going to be using a little bit of that today as well. You got a pack of these woodland stickers from American Crafts, one of my favorites. No lie, I have about 10 of these in my stash. So that shows how much I love this. I use this font a lot, so we're going to be using that for both projects today. Yeah, I think both projects today, or just one project maybe. Maybe just one project today. And then we have a pack of these chipboard clusters. This is from the Simple Vintage Country Harvest collection. I know that that when I originally designed the class, I was sent a whole bunch of this. And I know some of you went out and bought the collection, which is fabulous. So you can create these layouts using this collection if you want to. I'm going to tell you why I like this die cut pack, and particularly for those of you who are new to layering or you're still developing your layering skills, why these types of embellishments are fantastic. You also have some die cuts, which we're going to pop open and use. And then from your next stamp, we've got these gumdrops. They're self-adhesive, glitter gumdrops. I absolutely love these little enamel dots. They're fantastic. Okay, so we've got 2 projects we're going to be working with today. And I am going to set myself up real quick. I've got my photos in my journaling already pre-printed. I designed this several weeks ago. So I just want to make sure that I get everything set up. This has just some beautiful pattern papers. And by the way, whatever you have left in your kit, you can definitely use to make cards and other scrapbook layouts. I'm going to challenge you to see if you can exhaust your kit. I know you guys have got a lot of stuff, right? Because Catherine just like throws in a bunch of stuff, right? I want to make sure that you guys have all the supplies that you need to make your projects. So don't go put these things away. Keep them out on your scrappy desk and see how much usage you can get out of it. I'm just using this letter holder. This is what I use when I'm scrapbooking and I put, or card making or whatever. I got this from Tuesday morning. So I'm just going to set everything up there. So let's take a look at the first project that we are going to be working on. And it's a 2-page, 12 by 12 inch layout. And for full disclosure, I don't make a ton of 2-pagers anymore, mainly because I just don't take as many photos as I used to. And if I'm going to do a 2-page, I usually do a pocket page companion next to it. But every now and then, I bust out the old 2-page skills because sometimes your project just needs a 2-page. Now, I know that some of you are 2-page scrappers for sure, and that's cool. So if you're not a 2-page scrapper, or at least 12 by 12, here's a couple of things, because I've had this question asked. How can you then make this into something that's smaller? So if you're an 8.5 by 11 scrapbooker, just imagine that you have that 1 inch here, right, off the side, and then probably a few more inches here of space to work on, so you can adjust things over, make your embellishment cluster smaller, make your photos a little bit smaller to fit on that 8.5 by 11 space. These photos here that are, I believe they're 3 by 3, should be able to fit 8.5 by 11 as well. So again, if you're going smaller, you're just going to scale down. Again, for traveler's notebook size, again for 6 by 8. So we are talking about layering today, and I want to teach you a little bit about my process for layering. I have been layering on scrapbooks for many years, and it's taken me years to sort of hone my own style and how I like to layer. My eye is attracted to layouts that have lots of texture and dimension and height and all those types of things. But I'm also a type of scrapper that likes to keep things on the clean and streamlined side. So I don't typically make layouts that have a whole bunch of things that are going on to where it distracts from the eye. Okay, so, I see some of you said challenge accepted to use those kits, right? Absolutely, absolutely. So for this one, what we're going to do is a few things. We're going to create a layered background using some simple bands. I'm going to talk about some ways in which you can make these layered strips of pattern paper pop a little bit more on your scrapbook page. Of course, layering behind your photo, pattern paper and that type of thing to make your photos pop. But also, the question that I get most is creating layered clusters. What's too little? What's too much? How do you make them look great on a layout? Let's examine this real quick, and we're going to start making it. One of the things, particularly when you are working with a 2-page layout, is you can still have that layered look, but you want to give your layout some symmetry. So notice we have what's called a visual triangle that's going across the page. So we're going to have a layered cluster here, a layered cluster here, and then across from here, we're going to have another layered cluster. I'm going to come back to that concept and why I think it's important for layering here in just a few. Another thing that I want to point out in today's class, and I'll get there a little bit more detail when we get to it, is you want to use elements that do the work for you. So if you notice these little chipboard clusters that you received, they already are designed layered. So all you have to do is tuck in and add other elements and you have a beautiful layered cluster. This is what I call working smarter, not harder. Now, if you've been following me for some time, I always say I'm a little bit of a lazy scrapper. I always go for elements like this because it's less work, and particularly in the beginning when I was layering, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I always went for embellishments like this that were really simple for me to use, high impact, and then I can add other elements to really make it pop. So we're gonna get back to that when we start making it. We have two photos here on the right side, and notice, or the left side rather, and they're kind of layered on top of each other, so don't be afraid to layer your photos. I used to be one of those scrappers that I had to keep my photos apart, but that's okay. So not only do you have the layering element of the photos here with the matted pattern paper, but you also have them overlapping, and that kind of gives a little bit more of a more interesting look on that side of the page. Then we come over here to the right-hand side, we have something a little bit more linear here, but again, here's that layered cluster, okay? So lots of opportunities for layering here. This is kind of more on the simpler side of things. So my layering process is 3 steps. The first step is create an anchor, okay? So for these projects, we're gonna create an anchor, and that's your element, is basically your base, is where you're gonna start. So for our anchor, for our background, it's gonna be this pattern paper, and then we're gonna build up with the other pattern papers. And our anchor for the clusters are gonna be these chipboard pieces, okay? The next step is you're gonna, what I call stack the deck. That's when you start putting in more of these base layers, right? You're gonna start accenting the base rather. So here we've got the layered photos, and the embellishment cluster, I start putting in some more die cuts or stickers or whatnot, tucking things in, gluing things on top, that type of thing. We're just kind of building out the layer with different elements. And then the last step is adding in the details. And so for me, that's usually things like enamel dots. For you, it could be Nuvo drops. It could be a lot of different things. Those little small details, those little tiny die cuts that you can come in and add some really fun interest to your layers, okay? So anchor, stack the deck, add the details. Let's get to it. First thing you're gonna do, we are gonna build a background. Now, if you're like me, sometimes you have to have the 2-pagers set together. Sometimes you have to work on 1 page at a time, and that's fine. I'm gonna work on 2 pages at a time. We are gonna grab a few of the pattern papers from the pack. So the first one you're gonna grab are the leaves are falling. You can go ahead and take off the branding strip for this pattern paper if you haven't already. This is just beautiful. I just love this Swiss dot. Like, it's just so pretty. I'm just gonna take that off, and you can let go of that branding strip. It doesn't have a decorative part of it, so that's okay. You can let that go, put that in your recycle bin if you have one. Okay, now we're starting nice, clean with the base. There we go, okay? Next up is we are going to take, let me dig through here, this pattern paper, okay? This one is called Snuggle Up. And again, we're gonna take the branding strip off, and in your instructions, it tells you to cut it 6 by 12. Now, here's the thing, okay? And here's where you can cheat. If you're a person who likes to reserve your, or yeah, not reserve, but to save some of your pattern paper, right? Notice here on the completed layout, it just looks like a small strip. And I know some people had some questions about that. And we're building on layers. So this actual strip is 6 by 12. You can, if you want to, not use this as 6 by 12 if you want to save some of that pattern paper. If you just want to cut it off as like a 1 by 12 inch strip, put down your gingham, then your stripe, then this pattern paper, you're totally welcome to do that if you don't want to use the full 6 by 12 that we're about to cut this at, okay? So that's up to you what you want to do. All right, so I'm gonna cut this to 6 by 12, okay? And this is gonna go here on either side. We're building up the layer, okay? So that's kind of like my anchor, all right? Building up the layer. The next pattern paper we want to grab is this beautiful stripe pattern paper. This one's called Pumpkin Spice. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn it so that the strips or the stripes are going in a horizontal direction. And we're going to cut that, I believe it says 1 by 12 inch. I wrote this class a while ago, so if I get something wrong, don't worry. If I get something wrong, don't worry. Yeah, 1 by 12. So I'm just going to trim this out 1 by 12. Some of you may already have your papers cut. That's awesome. Some of you probably are just joining the party. That's cool too, right? 1 by 12. And get that trimmed up. Cool. Alrighty. I love, love, love this stripe. Okay. And then next up, we have, now this, folks, my favorite pattern. I mean, who's in? And let me know in the chat if you're down for a nice gingham or plaid or whatever. I mean, seriously, this looks like a picnic table. It's so beautiful. This one's called Fruit Baskets, which is really fun. You're going to cut this 4 by 12. Fruit Baskets. I like that name. It's kind of like fall picnic-y to me, right? You just grab a few little accoutrements, right, and go to the park and spread out your beautiful Fruit Baskets blanket. All right, so we're going to just trim this to 4 by 12. I like to, my process is typically get everything cut up and set out, and then all I have to do is just put it together. Ooh, you can even do that with the stripe or with the brown. I mean, seriously, I can just, let me not even go there because I'll be here all day like coordinating pattern papers. Alrighty, so we got our pattern paper base. Okay, don't let that pattern paper fly off too far because we're going to come back to it here in just a second. Okay. So, here we go. We are going to commit, my friends, in the Victoria Marie Scrap Loss community. We're about committing, right? We don't want to think too hard of stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and start gluing some stuff down. And let me go to the chat real quick. Amber says, love that you have a Brene Brown quote with your instructions. I do. I love Brene Brown. She is awesome. Okay, what you do to one side of the layout, you're going to do to another. So here's, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. This piece here is cut to 6 by 12. If you want to preserve some of this paper, what I would do is you can put your gingham strip here, your stripe strip here, and then you can cut off about a 1 by 12 inch strip and then put that there if you want to, if you don't want to use this entire 6 by 12. Completely up to you. Now, I have a lot of this pattern paper, so it doesn't matter to me since I want to use it up. But I wanted to make sure that this was the piece of paper that was pretty prominent or showing at the very end of the strips. So let's go ahead and adhere this down. What we do to one side, we'll do to another. So we have this beautiful leaf pattern paper goes first. You're going to come in with your gingham. Now, if you say, Victoria, I don't really like the order of those papers. I want to switch it up. Okay, it's your layout. It's completely your layout. Do you, boo? We're going to go ahead and layer this. Now, before you commit to that, here's an idea. Here's a tip for you. When you're layering papers, consider doing something with your papers, whether that's stitching along the borders. Maybe you want to pop out some distress ink and do a little bit of distressing along the edges. There's lots of different inks that you can use. You can use stamping inks as well. These are just some colors that I pulled. I typically don't ink my edges that much anymore, but that is definitely something you can do. You can also rough up your edges simply by taking a pair of scissors. Like we all know this technique, right? Roughing up your scissors a little bit. Or those punches that we have, those border punches, you can use 1 or 2 coordinating border punches and you can punch along the edge of your strips. And what that's going to do is it's going to add some interest to those paper layers, okay? All of those things that, those techniques and things that we've learned over the years, sometimes we forget about and we abandon. All of those things can be incorporated when making your pattern paper layers look fantastic. And you can do that even in a linear design like this, okay? All right, Patricia says the orange to save paper is 2 by 12 or 1 by 12. You can do 2 or 1 if you want to, either way. The idea is just to have a bit of this, that orange showing. So here it's probably more like, if I were to measure that, that's about 1 inches, about 1, depending on how thick you want that, if you want to save some paper and cut that strip. Michelle says, gingham and all the plaid, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, fantastic. Now we're going to come in with this strip here that we cut, that stripe pattern paper on the horizontal, and we're going to add that in. I do recommend, if you're working with multiple layers of paper, if you're going to stitch, either hand stitch or machine stitch, that you stitch your layers first and then adhere them together. Because if you have lots of pattern paper going on, then you don't want to ruin the needle on your sewing machine or whatnot, or even if you're hand stitching, unless you're putting in those holes, it can be a little bit harder to do that. So just be mindful depending on how many pattern papers that you're using. We got the left side done. Guess what? You're going to do it again on the right hand side. Again, this orange piece, if you want to save paper, trim that to about 1 by 12. Okay? Now, sometimes I do this to add a little bit more of a foundation to my layout. So if I'm using paper that's not very thick, and sometimes we have papers that are a little bit thinner than others, and that adds a little bit more foundation to that layout. Okay, then we're going to come in like we did on the left-hand side, right? Mirroring these 2 pages together. We're going to come in with this beautiful gingham, our picnic tablecloth. We're going to pop this right over here. Okay. Very gently, because we still have to make sure we have a bit of a some room here to put in this little strip here. Then we're going to come in with the strip of stripe pattern paper, and I like to just flip it this way. I don't have an eye for straight, so sometimes things on my pages look a little wonky. Let me know in the chat if you have the same problem with wonky things lining up. Now here's a cool thing. So say you're putting this together and you're watching this and you're like, Victoria, that's fun and all, but what if I don't want my 2 pages to go like that? What if I want them to go like this? Or what if I want them to go like that? It's up to you. Do you. Wherever your creative mind takes you. Lindsay says she's sanding her edges. That's also another fantastic idea. Nancy says her edges are often wonky. I'm with you. Let me know if you're part of #Wonky Club. I think we may have started something here. #Wonky Club. Totally wonky. I know. It happens. It happens. All right, folks. So now we have the base. We have the structure of our layout. Now it's time to have a little bit of fun. Now, I may not be going in the order in the way that my instructions are laid out. That's okay. Just follow along with me now. You have the instructions to refer to later. The next thing I like to do is I want to go ahead and start putting in the photos. On the left side of the page, I have 2 photos. One is a 4x6 photo, and one is a 4x6 on the horizontal, and then the other one is a 4x6 on the vertical. Sometimes that can trip people up a little bit when they're designing a layout to have photos of different orientation. I tend to make sure that I can layer those photos in some way, or I can line them up in some way that makes sense on the page. Sometimes I make them smaller so I can have a little bit more real estate to add more photos of different orientations. So what we're going to do is, my tendency before I start doing a lot of layering was to have the photos separate and very linear. And for some people that looks well to the eye. But, oh, we got #totally wonky. There we go. But if you want to add a little bit of a layering flair, consider layering your photos. And the reason why I do that is, 1, to have a little bit more interest on the layout. 2, to take advantage of any white space in the photo. So here, this is a photo of my daughter a few years ago. We were at the Dallas Arboretum. There's this beautiful row of pumpkins and stuff in the background, but there's this white space here. White space referring to space that's not occupied by something on a layout, right? So it's empty space. So that gives me permission to either do something layered like a cluster, or layer a photo, just like that, okay? Now, on the right side of the page, the instructions call for 3x3 photos. Now, if you're someone who doesn't scrapbook in 3x3 size, that's okay. If you have 4x6 photos, it'll take up a little bit more real estate on your layout, but this particular design is still doable, okay? If you have 3x3 or 4x4 or 3x4, whatever size you want to work in, if 3x3 is not a size, that's all right. You can go ahead and make adjustments because it's your project. You do what you want to do, okay? Now, here's a fun thing. In the project, we're going to layer some pattern paper behind the photos. And you can use whatever pattern paper you want to. You don't have to use what I'm using on this particular project. You do whatever you want to do. You have lots of pattern paper here to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this beautiful chocolate pattern paper. This is called Pumpkin Spice. And I'm just going to lay my photo down and trim around it. I don't do specific measurements whenever I am matting a photo. I can leave, 1 inch space or more if I want to, but I typically like to have at least a 1/2 inch or maybe 1/8 of an inch or something like that showing around the photo, enough so that I can see the pattern around the photo. This is going to build up a little bit of depth. Now, I could stop at 1 or I can layer in some more. So I'm going to layer in 1 more, and I'm just going to have a play with what's available to me in this kit. And I believe on this project, I use this pattern paper, which, hello, is that not beautiful? This is called Lumberjack. So I'm going to coordinate these 2 patterns together to layer behind this photo. Now I can use the same pattern papers that I've layered behind this photo on this photo, but I want to go for a little bit more interest. So I'm going to grab this, I think I want to do, where did it go? I had another gingham in here. I think you get 2 of the same patterns. Oh, where did my little scraps go? Okay. I think this might be big enough for me to mount this. Let me see. No, it's not, so I'm just gonna have to see what I gotta see. Okay, so for this photo, I have 2 different pattern papers. Again, you can use the same pattern paper to mount both photos, or switch it up and use different pattern paper for each photo. And what's so cool is when you're using a collection like this, you don't have to think about whether it coordinates or not because it all coordinates, right? So for this photo here, I believe I used, let me flip this over, a little bit of this gingham, and that's gonna kind of give a tone-on-tone effect here in the corner. And then I think I used this orange paper, and this is the B side of the Lumberjack. So I actually don't have to cut into this paper since I already have it selected, okay? If you are having trouble negotiating whether or not something coordinates, particularly with pattern paper, just flip it over to the B side. Because how often do we use the B sides? May not. Hey Vivian, what's going on? She loves the color of the pattern papers, absolutely. Hey Megan, what's going on, friend? Okay, so, by the way, if you guys missed Megan's class, you need to go back and watch it because Megan's awesome. I'm going to set this photo to the side. I'm going to go ahead and tack my photo down. Now, what if you say, Victoria, but I want to use more than 2 pattern papers behind my photo? Do you, boo? Go ahead. Use as many pattern papers as your heart desires, right? I'm going to use 2. And I'm just going to leave probably about 1/8 of an inch around that photo. Nothing too particular, right? No one's going to look at my layout and go, girl, that wasn't enough. No one's going to do that. Alrighty, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim this out. And I still have enough of this pattern paper that I can make some cards. I can make some other projects with, My challenge for those of you who just joined the live is to see how many projects you can make using your crop and create kits, right? Leave them by your workstations, right? Your crafty desk, your rolling carts, wherever you keep your stuff, and say, you know what, for this next layout, I'm going to use my goodies from crop and create. Okay, so I think I'm going to trim off this branding strip here. So now what you're doing, as I am, is you are layering your photos, okay? And we're doing that to the photos that are going to go on the left side of the page. Now, if you say, Victoria, but I also want to do them to the photos on the right side of the page, y'all know what to do. Go ahead. If you want to go ahead and layer up the photos on the right side of the page, you can absolutely do that, okay? That's completely up to you. So now I'm coming in and I'm just trimming around, leaving a border, no specific measurement. You make that as wide as you want to. Typically, I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch. And so now I have my layered photo using those pattern papers. Okay, that's my photo on the on the horizontal, my 4x4 photo. Now I've got this next photo, and I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to flip over this little plaid pattern paper. Flip this over. By the way, how cute would that be on a card base? Like, seriously? Okay, so I'm going to flip this over to the orange pattern paper side, the B side. It has beautiful leaves on it. Love the small detail. Perfect for adding layers, particularly behind photos because the pattern is smaller. Okay, so now what I want to do is, again, just going to lay my photo down, make sure I have as wide of a border as I want to. Again, it's not going to be anything, spectacular here. We're just layering photos. By the way, if you don't want linear layers, you can definitely offset your layers as well so that you have, like for instance, some pattern paper. Let me see if I can do it here. Some pattern paper jetting to one side, another piece of pattern paper coming off, like you see a little bit at the top. So you can definitely offset those layers too if you don't want them linear behind your photo. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead, complete those layers on our layout, or our photos rather. So I'm going to trim this out. Now, again, like with your background pattern papers that we created, you can also do a little bit of distressing to these, right? So you can come in, well, my papers are framed, so it actually looks distressed. My poor little paper trimmer has been put through the max. You can go through with your distress inks or your stamping inks, ink up the edges if you want to do that. If you want to, before you adhere it, do some stitching to make those layers pop. Can totally do that as well. Want to do some mixed media stuff to it? Cool, go for it. Want to take your scissors or a distressing tool or a sander, go through, sand the edges, can totally do that as well. And I think adding a little bit of texture to a fall layout is not a bad idea. Alrighty, so now we've got our anchor for our background. We layered in some pattern paper. How you choose to have that presented on your layout is completely up to you. If you want to stress the edges, use your border punches, that type of thing. And then, of course, we've done our paper layers behind our photo. And look how much depth and dimension that gives it versus just having the photo just tacked down directly to the layout without any layers. Hey, Megan, do your thing. Do your own thing. That's right. That's right. Question is, what if we don't have photos yet? What would be okay to put some whiter off-colored or paper? Yes. So if you haven't selected photos for this project, make yourself photo templates. So what I would do is you can take some scrap paper, white cardstock, whatever you have scraps, don't cut in anything new, and cut them to the size of the photos you're going to use for this project. If you are creating this project exactly how it's designed, then you're going to have two 4x6 photos, whether you have one on the horizontal, one on the vertical, or both in the same orientation, okay? And then you can use some temporary adhesive to tack your photo mat on. And then when you get your photo, just make sure to take off the temporary mat and then put your photo on. When it comes to the embellishing of the layout, you want to make sure that if you're going to slip some photos underneath here, we've got some layers that are going to be layered, or some embellishment clusters that are going to be layered over the photo, like this bottom photo and here at the top. So you want to make sure that you leave, either de-stick the sticker with, like, I've got a little powder tool that sometimes I like to use to take the sticky off, or something that doesn't stick to the photo or stick to your mat. And then that way you can just slip your photo in, and then you can adhere your embellishments. Okay, so if you're pre-making this page before you put photos. But I would use a photo mat of some sort. You can just really easy make yourself one with some scrap pattern paper. Good question. Good question. Lynette says, here's a tip. If you don't have photos but still want to layer along, just use a 4x6 or whatever size scrap of white cardstock in place. Yes, absolutely. It's placed as a card holder. Absolutely. Cool. Next, let's go ahead and lay out those photos for the part number 2. Oh, wait, no. Hold on, I'm moving ahead of myself here. We're not finished with these layers. We got one more pattern paper. I forgot about that. Oh, no, we forgot about our little picnic tablecloth. So I'm going to take this pattern paper again, just a little bit of that showing, popping out from underneath the photo. Let me trim off this branding strip so I can get things trimmed the way that I want. Okay. Now here's another tip for you. Layering presents an opportunity for you to use a lot of different substrates. So pattern paper is one option, but you can also use this as an opportunity to bring in things like vellum, glitter paper. If you have cork hanging around somewhere, you can purchase those as sheets as well. Those are all fantastic options for adding as far as paper layers are concerned and building up layers on your backgrounds. Okay. Maybe you can tuck a piece of wax paper under those stickers. Absolutely. April, thank you for that. I was trying to think of the name wax paper, and I couldn't think of it. So you can definitely tuck a bit of wax paper under those sticky embellishments, get them layered up, and then when you're ready to put the photo on, just slip the photo in and then permanently tack it down. Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely. Amber says she uses copy paper, cut to the size, and then she'll label it for temporary photos. All very good ideas. Okay, so now I got that side done. I'm going to bring out my trimmer, my Tim Holtz trimmer, and I'm going to get my 3x3 photos trimmed up and ready to go. And I'm going to leave a white border around my photos. I've pre-printed these, resize them using Photoshop. I'm teaching myself how to use Photoshop, and it has been so much fun because I've been able to do so many fantastic things with my photos and my digital files. I'm a big believer in learning a whole bunch of really cool tech tools to make scrapbooking easier. So I'm just trimming out my photos here. So grab your photos that are going to go on the right-hand side. Again, my photos are 3x3. Your photos can be a little bit bigger, 4x4. Maybe you're using your traditional 4x6 size. Again, that's going to take up a little bit more real estate on your layout, but it is doable with this design. All right. I got to be careful with this guillotine trimmer. You don't want to slice a finger off. This thing is sharp, sharp, sharp. Alrighty, so now I've got those all trimmed out. I love, love, love that trimmer. By the way, he just came out with a smaller guillotine trimmer too, which of course now I have to get because, you know, that's just what it is. Oh, absolutely. Okay. So, next up, we're going to go ahead and lay out our photos. So I am going to put, let's see, I want the pumpkin here on top. I always forget how this photo goes. I think it goes like that. And then I'm going to put my other photo with the pumpkin and the mums. This one here with a little bit of red. And this is going to go probably about in the middle of that second page. And the only thing I just want to be mindful of is I've got my photo story going from the left to the right of the page. Add a little bit of cohesiveness there. There we go. Now, for those of you who don't use foam adhesive, I'm about to introduce something to you that's probably going to change your life. One of the cool things about adding layers and dimension and texture is using some foam. I typically will use foam that's not much thicker than 1/8 of an inch, so I don't have bulky scrapbook pages. But what happens is it allows for your elements, your photos, and all that stuff to pop on your page. We're going to use some foam with some of the embellishments as we're creating our layered clusters as well. So you have your photos here on the right-hand side. Let's go ahead and adhere those down, okay? We're simply getting ready to start embellishing here in just a few. So I'm just going to tack these down. This photo and this photo, the ones that are opposite each other, I'm just going to adhere directly, not using any foam, behind the photos. Now, what may not look very clear on the photos of this project in your instruction guide is that these two photos here are popped up using some foam. So that's what we're going to do if you want to. If you don't like foam, don't worry about it. You don't have to be team foam if you don't want. I'm definitely team foam all the way. Hashtag team foam. See, I just started something else. I ran out of my scrapbook.com foam, so I'm just going to use some foam sheets and just going to cut these down. Normally I use some scrapbook.com foam strips, which I love, but I just ran out of them. So I'm just going to cut up some little foam sheets. You can get these at Walmart or your craft and hobby store. And I'm just going to adhere this in the back, and that's going to give me just a little bit of dimension in the back of that photo, but not a whole lot to make it super bulky, okay? I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive to the back of that foam. You can get these very inexpensively. Someone asked me if these foams were the foam was archival. I have no clue. I'm assuming it might be the same grade as the foam that you purchase for scrapbooking, but don't quote me on that. I have no clue. If you have an answer to that, let me know in the chat, because I have no clue if it's archival or not. Things I don't particularly worry about, but I know some people do. So I'm going to pop up these two photos that are opposite each other with a little bit of foam. That's going to give you some dimension there, which is perfect when you're creating any type of layout, particularly a layout with lots of dimension or lots of layering. Once we're done adhering these photos, we're going to go ahead and adhere the photos here on the left-hand side, and then we are going to do a title and do some clusters, and it's going to be all good. So I'm going to put this photo here, right there, and then I'm going to use this other little bit of foam, a little bit of double-sided tape from scrapbook.com, and one of our partners, right? Love scrapbook.com. And all I do is I just buy this foam in these little sheets. They usually come in a pack, and cut them up to the size that you need. You can also use, if you are environmentally conscious, the pattern or the paper scraps that you have left over. You can totally cut those up too and use them to add dimension behind your elements, right? Okay, so we are going to adhere this down. I saw a YouTuber do that one time. I'm like, that's genius. You can recycle old cardboard, chipboard, that type of stuff. You can use that to add dimension to items on your layout. So if you're environmentally conscious, hey, give it a shot. Even if you aren't, give it a shot. We'll save some trees. Alrighty, so now we are going to go ahead and pop up this little photo. Again, this photo size can be something different. This is your project. You make it the way you want to, okay? No stress, just a lot of fun in creating. We are going to put this here, okay? I try to get them lined up as much as possible, but sometimes it doesn't always work, but we're not stressing about it because no one's going to look at your layouts and go, girl, that wasn't straight, you know? And if they do, then, you know, whatever. Let's go ahead and dress these photos here on the left-hand side. Okay, so now this photo is the focal point photo. I'm going to have that one popped up. So I'm going to add a little bit of foam behind this. I'm just going to use this little rest of this piece here. And with this little nib right here to the side, I cut into that kind of funky. Adding some double-sided adhesive because I feel that works best with this type of foam, so that it will stay. You can use, you know, roller adhesive, but it tends to roll back on itself when you do. So I like using the double-sided adhesive. This can definitely be adhesive that already or foam that already has adhesive on it, or if you're using some other type of sustainable material, then, you know, go for it. So now I've got a little bit of height and dimension there for that photo, and I'm going to layer it over our vertical 4x6 photo. That's going to give it a tiny bit more interest. And notice too, I have this photo a little bit on the slant because, you know, we're just trying to do things fancy around here. You know, fancy, fancy. Glenda says, shut the front door to the use of old paper, right? When I saw somebody do that on a YouTube video, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I've been spending all this money on foam, and I could have just been using my scrap pattern paper or whatever that I'm not using to mount or to add dimension behind my photos and stuff. Like, I'm up here like, you know, just shocked that people did that. But they do. I mean, ways that we can save the environment. I'm going to bring this photo out right around there. A little bit of that orange showing, just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and tack that down, okay? And I love how it looks kind of like that tone on tone with the gingham. Oh, it's just beautiful. Let's go ahead and put some double-sided adhesive on here. I forgot to do that. I mean, the stuff you learn The stuff you learn. Oh, awesome. Okay, so Glenda, enjoy your supper, my friend. Enjoy your supper. All for the fancy slant. That's what Chrissy says. We're going to do the fancy slants. By the time you finish this class, you're going to have a whole list of new vocab terms, scrappy vocab terms, let me tell you. We're doing the fancy slant, right? Hashtag wonky. Alrighty, so now this photo, we're just going to set right around here. Okay, covering up a little bit of white space here on that one. Okay, my friends, we're doing this. We are all in. Let me check my time. Okay, we are all in. Next up, okay, so we have our pattern paper background. We started with our anchor, which was this Swiss dot pattern paper. We added in our layers of pattern paper in strips. You can zhuzh these up if you want to, make them fancy by distressing them, adding ink, doing some stitching on them, whatever you want to. If you're not sure at this point, you can adhere them with some temporary adhesive and then say, you know, I think I'm going to use Victoria's idea and add in some stitching. Then you can pull them up and stitch, or maybe you can stitch directly on your layout. That's completely up to you, okay? So we have 3 layers of this pattern paper going on to create this layered sort of linear style of layers. We added in our photo, but we also took in the layering here behind our photos with the pattern paper. You use whatever pattern paper that you want to behind your photo. Whatever looks good to you. The cool thing about using collections is that it all coordinates, so it takes the guesswork out of it for you, okay? We've got our 2 photos here, one on the vertical, one on the horizontal. We have them overlapped a little bit, and then we did a little fancy slant with this photo right here. And then on the other side, we have our complementary photos, right, that are going with our main photos on this page, 3 by 3, if that's the size you want to use. You can go a little bit bigger if you want to do that. Just know that you're going to take up a little bit more real estate on your page if you do. It's embellishment time! Bah, 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 bah. My niece and nephew would be rolling their eyes right now. Alrighty, who gets excited for embellishing? Let me know in the chat with an emoji if you are excited to embellish. So we've layered using some pattern paper. We've layered with our photos. Now it's time to layer with some embellishments. And you guys are just going to flip your lid when you see how easy this is. You're going to grab your Simple Stories chipboard pieces. Okay? We're about to go into, I'm going to set this one right here so you can follow along. For the left side of the layout here, we're going to grab our chipboards. Let me know if you love chipboard, because I do. I spend a lot of money on chipboard embellishments. That's a little embarrassing, but I do. We're going to grab this little guy here. He's the Happy Harvest truck. So cute. Let me know if you're ready to embellish. Throw in an emoji there. Burr, 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 burr. This little Happy Harvest truck is going to go right along here. Okay? But we're just going to set him out for right now. Let's just get all the elements that we need. We're going to set him right here for right now. Alrighty? Then, what you're going to look for is this chipboard element that says Forever Fall. Ooh, I see all the emojis coming in. Let me know if you're ready to embellish. Okay, there's that. Alrighty, we're going to start there. Just like with our pattern papers, and we layering our pattern papers, we started with an anchor and then we're building up. We're going to do the same thing with our embellishments. So remember, the process is anchor, stack the deck, details. Now we're going to come in with stacking the deck, okay? So we're going to take these 2 little chipboard pieces. Now I want to go to the design of this. Here's a little tip from me to you. I believe in working smarter, not harder. And when it comes to learning a new technique, the easier you can achieve the technique, achieve the look, the better. It's going to give you a little bit more confidence. Notice that these chipboard pieces are super layered. They're designed to be layered, right? So you have this pumpkin and then you have all these other elements around it. This does half the work for you. If this particular element wasn't designed this way, this is exactly how I would layer it. I would have the anchor piece, which would be the pumpkin. I would have the supporting pieces, or stacking the deck, which would be the butterfly and the leaves. And then I would have the detail piece, which would be the label. Okay, so you can do this even apart from having a chipboard piece that's already designed this way for you. You can still, again, apply the same process. Now, this whole entire piece is going to serve as our anchor, and that's going to go right here to the top of our photo. Okay, that's our starting place. That's where you're going to start. Our little truck guy here with the pumpkins, same idea. He's going to be our anchor, and we're going to put him right down here. That's the start of our cluster. Okay, so here's the finished one. Here's the one in process. If you notice, there's some big old chunky chunks in here. Look at that guy, right? It's just huge, but it does the work for you. Like, you can build this out yourself, but why? It's already done for you, okay? So there we go. We have that. Now, along with this cluster, notice there's an apple, a pumpkin, and a leaf, and then there's another little pumpkin and a leaf here. These are from the sticker sheet. So what I want you to do is grab your sticker sheet, okay? Got our sticker sheet. Lots of opportunities to do lots of things. And by the way, with all these materials that you've received, even after making these 2 layouts, you could probably get another 3 or 4 layouts out of this depending on how you use this kit. All right, so the best way I like to use stickers is, in the past, I would take stickers off the page and slap them directly on a layout and then decide I didn't like it. So what I've decided to do over the years is to just dull the sticky on the back. So you can do this by simply rubbing it against your hand or your pants, or you can use a powder tool. I'm going to use this powder tool from We Are Memory Keepers. All right, so on this little sheet, what we're going to do is we're going to grab this pumpkin here. Okay, I'm just going to stick that on my hand. We're going to grab ourselves a little apple. Okay, and then we're going to grab the little yellow leaf that's right here. Okay, so these are the 3 things we are going to grab. And then notice too, there's a little acorn on our cluster. He's over here on this side of the sticker sheet. So just grab the little acorn. Okay, there we go. And then what I'm going to do is, if you don't have a powder tool, don't worry. You can just, rub it on your sleeve, whatever, just dull the sticky. And this will prevent you from sticking things down and not being able to reposition them if you change your mind. We'll add more adhesive on here to stick it down. Okay, so we have this sheet here, this part of our layout. I'm going to go ahead and tuck this embellishment underneath our chipboard piece. I haven't adhered anything yet, okay? I'm building out the cluster. So we have our anchor. Now we're stacking the deck. Stacking the deck doesn't always mean that you're adding things on top of your anchor. It could mean that you're tucking things in on the outside of your layer, or you're layering things on top of your anchor, whatever it may be. Okay, so we're just going to do a little bit of tucking, and we're just going to slide that little pumpkin in just like that. Okay, Leanne says she loves the embellishment air horn. Thank you, right? I didn't know this class would come with sound effects. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this with the other things. Again, you just rub it on your pants, whatever you want to do, okay? And the reason why I do that is so that I don't commit and then change my mind. Let me bring this guy back out. This is the original, okay? So here, we're going to go ahead and take our apple, and we are going to tuck that underneath our anchor, but we're going to layer it right on the side of that little pumpkin there, okay? Then we're going to take our leaf. I'm going to dull the sticky. And the reason I'm dulling the sticky is if I want to move any of these around, then I'm not worried about pulling it up and ripping the paper and the whole nine, because we've all been there. We stuck something down and then it's like a whole thing. So I'm then going to take this leaf. I'm just going to tuck it underneath that pumpkin, just building out that cluster. Okay? Then I'm going to take my acorn, do the same thing. Okay? Now, besides stickers, this could be other things. It can be die cuts. It can be wood veneers. It can be acrylics. It can be a lot of other embellishments, but we're going to work with what we have. Now, this acorn is going to actually layer on top of our chipboard piece. Okay? Now, here's the thing when you're building out clusters or making layers or designing in general. Typically, the eye is drawn to odd numbers. And so your clusters can feature odd number of elements if you want them to. That's not a hard and fast rule, but if you're deciding whether or not your cluster looks balanced, stick with odd numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in this cluster. Again, it's not a deal breaker if it's 4 or 6 or 8 or any other type of even number, but just know that when you're building out the cluster, if it's starting to look weird to you and you have an even number of items, take one off and see how it looks to your eye. Okay, so that's another tip for you. Okay, so that cluster is ready to be adhered. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my little acorn off. I'm going to add a tiny bit of adhesive here. And then because on my original one here, I had both of the photos popped up. If you have a photo that's popped up, say like this photo here, then you want to make sure you have some foam adhesive or something on the back if you're layering your photos, laying your element over your photo or whatever element that's popped up so that it stands up to equal height of that particular element. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on here. And I'm going to layer that here in the white space of my photo. I'm okay because it's not obstructing the face of my daughter in this photo or anything that I feel that's important. I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to go ahead and lay that down. We're going to commit because we don't have any commitment issues here. And I'm just going to let that label on that little piece kind of follow the line of the photo. Now, before I super press this down, I'm going to go ahead and start putting adhesive on my other little embellishments. I'm using some Tombow Mono. You can, or roller adhesive, you're welcome to use whatever adhesive you prefer. Some of you I know like liquid adhesive, that's cool too. I use the Barely Art glue, which is fantastic. I know some people use another brand. What's the other one that I'm thinking of? Glitter glue, glitter something or the other, I forget what it's called. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and press that down because I'm pretty cool with that cluster. Now we're gonna take our acorn. Now you can go ahead and just adhere the acorn down if you want to, but the thing about layering here is you want to add some interest. Don't be afraid to add a little bit of dimension. So we are going to take a little bit of foam, put that behind our acorn, and we're going to layer that right on top of our pre-made cluster. And now we have a layered cluster, odd numbers, more pleasing to the eye. We started with an anchor. We added our supporting elements, which is stack the deck. And then we added, or our supporting elements. Now we are going to add in the details. So those gumdrops that you got, yeah, it's time to bust those out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple or maybe 10,000 of them onto this cluster. And I'm just going to add them right here to our cluster just to add a little bit more sparkle and detail there. Now, I could stop at 2 and that makes it 7, but you know what? It's sparkly. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in another one just between you and I. And there we go. That adds some texture, dimension, and some interest, and that finishes out that cluster, that layered cluster there. Now, can you put these little glitter dots on elements here? You absolutely can. If you want to, you can put them to the side, but I consider this all a part of that layered cluster right there. Now, friends, all we have to do is repeat the same process for the cluster down here and the one on the opposite side of the page. Creative Bray says, hello, what is the powder brush official name? I think this is just called Powder Tool from We Are Memory Keepers. Or, yeah, I think it's just called Powder Tool, I believe. Oh, Megan, thank you for answering that. We Are Memory Keepers Powder Tool. Yeah, I was right. There we go, Powder Tool. I always think something's called something fancier than what it is, but it's just a powder tool. That's it. Okay, now let's move on to the next cluster. Okay, and then we'll be finished with, we'll move on to the third, and then we'll be finished with this one. Okay, so we have our little truck. Now we're going to go back to our sticker sheet, and you're going to grab this sticker here. That's the pumpkin with its lid off and the flowers. The reason why I chose this is because it adds some interest to the cluster without me doing a whole lot of work. So take advantage of those types of designs, okay? So I have the pumpkin, and then we're going to grab this red leaf, and then we're going to grab an apple, this one here. So these are the ones that you're going to grab from your sticker sheet. Now notice too, here's another tip, that I'm grabbing elements of different sizes. So to add some more interest to your layers, you can use elements of the different size or same size texture and that type of thing, but it's probably not going to give you the interest that you're wanting. So don't be afraid to create clusters that have different textures, that have a whole lot of dimension, and also pay attention to scale. So when you're making your clusters, you want elements that are both small, medium, and large, depending on the size of your layout and what design you're going for, okay? So we have those 3 stickers. And what I want to do is I want to tuck in the pumpkin sticker and then the leaf sticker right here behind the truck. And then we're going to pop on the little, not the orange, but the apple, okay? So I'm actually okay sticking this down. And I'm going to put this right here, trying to follow along with my original design. So that's going to go there. Again, using up some of the white space in the photo, I'm okay covering up my daughter's feet, just little tennis shoes and some of the pumpkins because I can still see the pumpkins. And then I'm going to bring the leaf and I'm going to put that right underneath here and stick that down. Now, if you want to add a little bit more fanciness, a little bit more oomph to this, then you can certainly pop these up using some dimensional foam if you want to, or they can lay flat if you want them to. Then our little apple, let's go ahead and get a foam dot for that. I'm just using some foam dots from American Crafts. And we're just going to pop that up, but first we need to adhere our truck down. So go ahead and adhere your truck down. The truck was our anchor, and we're just putting some things behind it. Boop, 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 there we go. And then we're going to stick our little apple. Now you may be saying, Victoria, what if I don't want to use these exact stickers? It's okay. Use whatever stickers you want to. Lynette says, or a couple of knee-highs or pantyhose layers will do. I hate pantyhose and knee-highs. Oh, so uncomfortable. Alrighty. And then what we did up here to this cluster, we're going to do down here. Now notice that these don't have identical elements, but they have coordinating elements. So coordinating in terms of color, size, theme. This is a fall theme layout. So I'm going to have some fall theme things here, fall themed things right here. This has those beautiful gumdrops. We're going to put some gumdrops over here. So I am just going to sprinkle them right underneath our little truck. Add a little bit of texture, and you can sprinkle those however you like. I have them in a cluster of 3. Some people like to spread out their dots, so maybe you want one here, here, and here. You can totally do that as well around your layered cluster. You can put them on top if you want to. Maybe you have one tucked here, one down here, one by the apple. You can do that too. Okay? Alrighty. Now we're going to add some balance to the next part of our layout. So we're going to set this one aside. Okay? We're going to bring over the right-hand side of our layout. Here's the one in progress, our whip. Here's the one that's finished. This time, I want you to grab the die cuts that came with your pack. So it looks like this. Again, photo play. All coordinates beautifully. We're going to open that up. Open up all your stuff, you know. Open it up, take it out, play with it. You know, get a feel for it. So I'm going to take these out of the package, and what we are looking for is this die cut, this circular die cut. It looks like this, okay? It says, cute as pumpkin in the patch, okay? That's the die cut we're looking for. Then, from your chipboard pieces, you're looking for this die cut, the little, it has a little, I guess, a little basket with the pumpkins and stuff with it, the ampersand. Again, perfect element to layer. It already has the layered design for you. All you have to do is enhance it. Question, where would you put the journaling? In fact, thank you, we're about to get there. The journaling in this design is right underneath the photos on the right-hand side. You could also put journaling here. You can put it up here if you want to, but the way I designed it was the journaling's going down here. All right, so we have this large chipboard piece right here, and we're actually going to pop that up with a little bit of foam. You're going to take your circular piece. Chipboard piece is the anchor. Now we're going to stack the deck by putting in supporting elements. That's going to go right here behind that chipboard piece. Okay, I want you to go back to your sticker sheet. You're going to grab this grayish leaf. Okay. You're also going to grab, we're using a lot of stickers here, which is great, this leaf here, this yellow leaf. Okay. And then you're going to grab this label sticker that says pumpkins, okay, from your sticker sheet. Now, if you want to dull the sticky on the back while you get everything in place, absolutely okay. All right, so what I want to do first is, because I know that I'm going to layer this die cut behind my chipboard piece, I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to my cluster. The reason why I created this process, or I kind of gave it a name or some steps, is I'm a process-driven scrapbooker. I like to know what comes first, second, or third in the process. It helps me when I'm designing, particularly when I start designing professionally. But also, too, I don't like to spend a lot of time thinking about a whole lot of things. So if I have a defined process in place, then I can just follow the process, and it makes this a whole lot easier. It took me a while to learn that over the years, as I was learning how to layer and make, scrapbook pages. Not just a layering technique, but just in general, learning how to make scrapbook pages. Okay, so we're going to pop up, if you want to, this is optional, but if you want a little bit more of a bump up on your pages, is to add a little bit of foam on the back of your chipboard piece. So I'm going to do that. Normally I would use something a little bit bigger, like a foam strips, but this will work too. So I'm just going to use these American Craft little foams. Okay. And I'm just going to pop that up. That's going to give you some dimension, and it's going to give you some room to add in your little supporting elements. So we're going to stick that right around there. I'm going to take up a little bit of space on this photo. If you're using a 4x4 photo, just know, or 4x6 photos, just know that that 4x6 is going to take up a little bit more real estate. So if you have here in your bottom photo, so imagine that photo is going right here, just know that you're going to have to account for this larger chipboard piece, or you can make the cluster smaller, okay? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and add in this little chipboard, make sure I have it where I want it. And for this cluster, we're using chipboards, we're using the cardstock die cuts, we're using stickers, and we're using enamel dots. If you're just getting started and you're kind of overwhelmed by a lot of the types of materials available to you to accent your pages with, don't worry. Maybe start out with about 2 or 3 types of products, die cuts and chipboards, and then move your way up as you're continuing to learn how to layer and incorporate different products onto your pages. So we're just going to go ahead and stick that right down here. Right? No commitment issues, right? We're just going to stick down. Boom. Your pumpkin label that we pulled out, what we're going to do is we're going to tuck this right here. Just layer it, adding some interest. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to give it a fancy slant. We're going to give it a fancy slant. And we're going to slant it just a little bit. If you're really like, I need it linear, that's okay. Keep it straight. But if you want a fancy slant, just slant it just slightly. I'm going to hold this up so you can see what I'm talking about. So here we go. Notice how that slanted just a little bit. Those small details are what's going to add interest to your layered clusters. Those small details, okay? Question, what mat is under these photos? So these photos actually I printed and trimmed them so they had a white mat around them. You could use white cardstock behind your photos to create a mat, or any color cardstock that coordinates with the materials that you're using. Okay, next up, those 2 leaves that we pulled, I'm going to stick them right over here. Notice in this chipboard piece, we have some brown leaves here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of accent that a little bit. I could add some foam adhesive to this if I want to. I'm just going to lay them flat and tuck them right underneath that chipboard. And then that yellow leaf, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to tuck it right here. There we go. Okay. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements there in that cluster. And look how cool that is. This chipboard piece right here does all the work for you. Now, if you didn't have a chipboard piece like this, then you could definitely use the same principle. You start with an anchor, layer on or stack the deck, some elements, some coordinating elements with it, then add your details, same thing. But this piece here, it just takes most of the work, away. So that's good. I'm all for scrapbooking smarter, not harder, my friends. All right, let's bring out those gumdrops. We're going to add in the finishing details. So we did the anchor, stack the deck. Let's add in those finishing details. I'm going to add in some enamel dots. Here, again, I like clustering my enamel dots. It's just a thing that I have. Some people like to spread them out. That's cool. So you do you, boo, whatever you want to do. If you want to add a couple here and a couple down here to kind of bring that together, you absolutely can. If you want to cluster them up like I do, that's fine too. Okay, I like to have a little bit of space there for my little dots. All right. Yes, we are cooking with fire. Now, let's stay here on the left-hand side of the page. Notice there's a couple things we need to do. We need to add the title and the journaling and whatnot. On this far photo here to the left side, I have a label. That label is from the sticker sheet, and it says memories. Now, if you follow me, then you know that I love using labels, or tabs rather, tabs, on my scrapbook pages. I typically put them on every scrapbook page. So I want to put this tab right over here just to draw a little bit of attention up here to that top of the layout. So because this photo is mounted with some foam, I'm just going to take a little bit of my fun foam that I used earlier. Normally I use foam from scrapbook.com, but I'm going to use some of my emergency foam because I ran out. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of foam there at the tab. Now I'm only doing this because this photo right here is popped up with foam, so I need to make sure it's of equal height. Otherwise I would just slap it down. This could also be some, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to add dimension, you can use strips of cardstock, cardboard, whatever you have around to create some height and dimension behind your elements if you don't want to use foam. And I'm just going to put this right here to this side of the photo. It could go up here if you wanted. It can go on any other photo, but I really wanted to add some interest here. And this is the photo here of my daughter and my spouse. So I wanted to add that attention there. Okay. So friends, with that, we have, let me grab the other side of this layout because we're about to finish it out and start on the next one. Here we go. So now we have our 2-page layout. Everything's almost done. We just need to add title and journaling. So let's flip back to this side of the page. Notice that there is a title that says autumn. Here's another way that you can add some interest to your layouts without a whole lot of work. So this sticker sheet, let me see, down here has the word autumn. So if you want your title to say autumn, that's great. If you don't want your title to say that and say you want it to say something else, then you can use the letter stickers that were included in your kit, or you can reach in your stash or maybe some of the other goodies that you were given this weekend that came into your packs, into your class materials to create whatever title you want to. But I really, really love this sticker because it's colorful and it has a white border, so it's going to pop on this dark background. So what we're going to do is work on the title. We're going to grab two things. We're going to grab this autumn sticker right here, okay? And we are going to put that right underneath our photo on the left-hand side of the page, okay? This is one of the reasons why I designed this layout so that it had a horizontal photo going this way, so that I have a spot where I can run this title. And we're just going to stick it right here, okay? If you want to pop that up with some foam, you could do that too. That's cool. Then we're going to grab the sticker sheet again, and we're going to grab this sticker that says, "We are blessed." Again, if you want this title, that's cool. If you want something else, that's awesome as well. I'm going to layer this sticker right on top, or right at the bottom rather. Just add a little bit of that layer there, and there we go. How fun is that? Now I could have brought that down. That's cool too, but I want to add a little bit more interest, right? We're being fancy, so why not? Okay, at the top, we have this die cut that says "Thankful, Grateful, and Blessed." And that is a part of your Photo Play cardstock ephemera. And it's actually, depending on what you got, it's probably still kind of attached here. You're just going to pop that out. Okay. And then we're going to stick that right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to anchor in that photo. Because without it, it just kind of feels like the photo is getting ready to fall off the top of the page. We are just going to put that right here, and it just seems to bring it all in. If you take off this side of the layout, that's a perfect one pager right there. And then you can scale it to whatever size that you want. Okay. Let's see. Tracy says, my daughter, 8, did one half of the layout and I did the other. That is so fun. Fantastic. And good for you for including your little one. That's awesome. That's so awesome. Stacy says, love your sparkly personality. Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. All right, we're going to stick that right there. Okay. So there's that. And let me move this out the way. So we're finished on that side. Okay. Next up, or lastly, I have my journaling, which I pre-printed. And I usually will print my journaling on my computer just using Microsoft Word, nothing fancy. I've been typing my journaling more and more in Photoshop, but Microsoft Word is cool too. You don't have to type your journaling. You can simply handwrite it if you want to. I'm just going to trim that out. And I have it typed up and printed on some computer paper. Normally I would do cardstock. And I'm going to put my journaling right here at the bottom. You, depending on the color of your background, sometimes I will use vellum and type up my vellum and print it out and trim it up and put it on my layout. Sometimes I'll go ahead and pre-type the journaling on my page. I do have a large format printer and I have a We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter, which allows you to type on 12 by 12 pages. So it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. I find lately that I write better when I type, when I'm able to type out my thoughts. So I went with typed journaling. You can certainly do handwriting if you want to. And since this is a dark background, it kind of makes it a little bit harder to see handwritten journaling. So you could definitely create yourself a journaling block where you handwrite, maybe draw some lines and stick it there on your layout. So lots of different options. So the journaling can go here. You can put the journaling up here. You can put it to the side depending on how much you want to say. If you want to use maybe a 3x4 pocket card or something, whatever. You can even put the journaling over here if you want to. But I thought it looked really good over here to kind of fill that out. And I could probably trim this up a little bit. That's a lot of white going on there. So I'm going to do that real quickly. And while I'm doing this, this is a great time to kind of catch up. Let me know if you have any questions about this one before we go on to our next project. This next one is going to be really fun to put together. Just going to trim that up just a little bit. Let me see my time. Okay. And then we're just going to stick this right down here. Boom. 2-page layout using all these beautiful goodies from Photo Play, from Simple Stories. We started with the pattern paper background. We laid down our pattern paper layers. We talked about ways in which you can make those layers a little bit fancy. We also created layered clusters. Notice they're rolling in a visual triangle across the page. We started with our chipboards as our anchor. We then brought in, stacked the deck with the die cuts and stickers. Then we added details using those enamel dots. We added in our journaling and our title. Folks, we are done with that project. How cool is that, right? How cool is that? You do you. If you didn't want to flow with this design, it's okay. You make it however you want to. Alrighty, we're gonna take a quick breather. I'm gonna take a sip of water. I just noticed the time, so I wanna make sure we get finished with this next layout. The next one is an 8.5 by 11. You can make it 12 by 12 if you want to. That's completely up to you. Just rescale the items. You're good to go. I'm going to set this to the side. And because I'm type A, I got to clean as I go. I'm going to set this to the side real quick. There we go. Let's work on that 8.5 by 11. Get everything set back up. Alrighty, the next layout we're going to do. 8.5 by 11. This one's called Fall Fun. You can call it whatever you want to depending on the theme of your layout. What we're going to do is we're going to start with, let's go ahead and trim up the pattern papers. The lumberjack pattern paper, okay? We're using lots of pattern paper today, my friends. This is going to be trimmed to 8.5 by 11. Some of you may already have this trimmed up, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and breeze by this because, you know, we all know how to cut paper. But 8.5 by 11. trim that up. I took the marking strip off. We're using the B side of this particular pattern paper, which is great. And I'm going to trim that part to 11. Let me know if you're having a lot of fun. If you had a lot of fun this weekend, throw me an emoji in the chat section. Oh, Valerie says, I'm loving this. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. AJ says, so behind, decided I wanted to print photos, but that's okay. That's fine. You do whatever you need to do, my friend. Okay, so we have this for our base, and let's build up some paper layers. We're going to add in a contrasting piece, this dark chocolate brown. We're also going to pull out the textured white cardstock. Okay, so we're going to layer these papers up. Now, your directions read, and I'm also going to give you a tip where if you're like me and you don't like measuring stuff, I'm just going to give you a tip. So let me look to see what I have here. So 8.5 by 11. The cardstock, where the white cardstock, we're going to trim down. Let me take the branding strip off. Just like that. Boom. We're going to trim this 7. Uh-oh. Don't rip, little paper. Don't rip. By the way, to the person who had a question about the photo mats, you can use some of this white cardstock to mount your photos if you want to. That's always an option. Okay, 9 3/8. I'm not really good at measuring, but the measurement is 9 3/8, by the way. So what I like to do is just cheat. How far? How far down? Sometimes I can't always see the measurements on my board. Where's my pencil at? Here we go. What we're basically doing is we're making a mat for the photos, a large mat for the photos. It's about right here. That's where I want to trim. That's what I just want to make sure. So that's going to be 9 3/8. Trim that down. This particular trimmer, it's hard to see those measurements. Okay. And this is where your 3x4 photos are going to go. Okay. Now, for that chocolate piece of pattern paper, this one that's pumpkin spice, just take this piece here, your white. In the instructions, it says the pumpkin spice is 7 4/4 by 9 5/8. Just take your white piece of paper and create a border around it is essentially what you're doing. If you want to gut this piece out, you're welcome to do that to save the paper, or you can just mount it and layer it on just like this and have about 1/8 of an inch or so or 1/4 of an inch around that and then trim it out. That way you're not having to fuss and worry about exact measurements. Again, I'm a lazy scrapper. I'm a totally lazy scrapper. I like to do things easy, right? This is supposed to be fun. I don't want to think that hard. Ideally, what you're going for is a border around that white textured cardstock. That's what you're going for. Okay? And bam, lay it down. And we call that done. Okay? And what's going to happen is in between your paper layers, it's one thing if you're using paper layers and they're kind of the same color hue. It's another if you're using some that have more of a definition to them in terms of color or style or pattern. So using this darker pattern paper, this is not something that I would always reach for, but it gives me a point of delineation between the white and the brown. I mean, the white and the brown and the orange. So it works perfectly. We're going to go ahead and adhere this on, and then we're done with that particular part of the layout. Start it with this orange as our anchor. We're going to come in and stack the deck with these pattern papers here, the chocolate, and then the white cardstock. And that's going to give us a clean foundation. The photos are the star of the show on this one, but notice here, just like in the last layout, we're actually going to layer in the photos, the 3x4 photos, and we're also going to make a pocket card. Let's see. So we are going to grab the photos. I'm going to trim them out real quick. Use this as an opportunity to go ahead and trim out your photos if you need to, or get any of the supporting elements. Of course, your supply list and stuff is already available to you. Now, my photos are printed on 4x6 photo paper, resized to 3x4. I'm leaving a little bit of a border around them. Whoops, I'm about to mess that one up. And then what I want you to do as I'm trimming out these photos is notice in the example in your instructions that the photos also have layered behind them some pattern paper. You select whatever pattern paper you want to use to layer behind your photos. I use a little bit of that fruit basket pattern paper, this gingham pattern paper, and then some more of that chocolate pattern paper, the lumberjack, I think that's what it's called, behind the photos. But you use whatever you want to use for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these photos out, and I'm going to get them mounted on some pattern paper. And then we're going to position them and layer them. Again, you could keep it linear if you want to, but if you want to be fancy, you know, let's go ahead and do it up. That's what we're here to do. Here's my other photo, right back here. There we go. This was photos that I took at a, I think it was called Boo at the Zoo. My family and I live in Fort Worth, and a couple of years ago, we went to the zoo, and my daughter did some trick-or-treating there, and they got to dress up, and they had people performing, and it was really fun. And part of one of the displays were decorated pumpkins, and someone had decorated a couple of pumpkins as the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus. So cute. I mean, complete with brooms and everything. It was really adorable. Next up, take the pattern paper that you want to use to layer behind your photos. It doesn't matter which one. This one's up to you. You can freestyle it. I'm going to go ahead and use this chocolate pattern paper here, which is just beautiful. We're going to go ahead and take some of our little picnic table pattern paper. Let me see if I have a smaller piece of that. Always use your smaller pieces first. Actually, I think I want to switch this out. I want the Sanderson sister pumpkins. Let's stick that there for now to be on a different pattern paper. I'm going to take the photo of my daughter and I. That's when she was a little bit younger. And I'm going to use this gingham one. Again, you can use whichever pattern papers you want. Then for this photo, I'm going to use the chocolate. Okay. You can totally freestyle this, or you don't have to have anything behind it if you don't want to. But again, we're taking things to the next level here, so might as well go ahead and layer those photos. Then I'm going to bring in this pattern paper here, your gingham pattern paper. And I don't have to worry about whether it coordinates or not. All my layers are going to look coordinated because this all comes from the same collection. Okay? Alrighty, let me go ahead and get these trimmed out. So I have a little bit of a border around those photos and a whole lot of interest. Take advantage of the pattern papers. Take advantage of these designs. By the way, if you have a bunch of 6x6 paper pads and it coordinates with the collection that you're using, I'm just saying that's a great way to get them used up because 6x6 paper pads have smaller designs and they're perfect for using as layers, creating embellishments, that type of thing. I'm going to slightly reposition this because I am a little bit, not perfectionist, but I get a little bit crazy when it's too wonky. You know, there's wonky and then there's too wonky. And you don't want things too wonky because then that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. Outside of teaching this for a class, this layout comes together super quickly. Because the star of the show are the photos. Let's take our photos and let's layer them, shall we? So we're going to take the first two photos. Oops. Oh. Stick those here. Okay. This photo is going to layer. They're going to overlap in the center. Okay. I'm covering up some of the white space, and that's okay. And I'm using some of the white space here to create a cluster. Alrighty, now, in the original project, there was a pocket card that I used here. Since that particular pocket card's not included with this photo play collection, it was included with the other collection by Simple Stories, we're actually going to grab this pattern paper here, the one that looks like this, the gingham pattern paper, and you're going to trim this down to 3x4, okay? Now, don't adhere your photos yet because there's something else we have to do. So this pattern paper, trim down to 3x4. All right. And that's going to be the pocket card that we're going to use right here. And this will also serve not only as an anchor for our title, but it's also going to serve as an anchor for the cluster we're going to build out. Alrighty? Be fancy, friends. That's right. You gotta be fancy. Hashtag not too wonky. That's right. Okay? So we also have this leaf pattern paper. Let's see if I have any more scraps of that, because I don't want to cut directly into it. I might not. Oh, goodness. This pattern paper called Snuggled Up. We're going to trim that down to, what did I have that trimmed down to? I can't remember the size now. Create a title. Let me go back. Let me check and see. I believe it's 2.5, roughly 2.5 by 3.5 inches. Ideally, what you want is for this pattern paper to sit right in the middle of your 3x4 pocket card. So you can trim it down to 2.5 to 3.5 inches. Where'd my larger trimmer go? Let me move this out the way. And we'll go here. I'm going to take the branding strip off, and we're going to create our own little pocket card, because that's what we do, right? That's what we do. When you don't have something in your stash, you improvise and you make it. So trim this down to 2 by 3.5 roughly. Okay. Got all this gorgeous extra pattern paper left over we can do so many things with. And that's going to go, we're making our own little custom pocket card here. That's going to go right in the center of that pattern paper, the gingham pattern paper. So we can go ahead and adhere that. And if you want to do something fancy, you can stitch around the border. You can do all kinds of fun things. All right, so that's where our tile is going to go. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Victoria, that's a lot of photos on this 8.5 by 11 layout. Where does the journaling go? The journaling is going to go right behind this top photo. It's hidden journaling. All I've done is I've created a 3x4 card. Slightly, well, actually it's slightly trimmed smaller than 3x4 because it has to be able to fit behind the photo. I typed up my journaling and slapped it right on there. You can pre-type your journaling, trim this down. This also could be a 3x4 pre-printed pocket card that you already have in your stash that you trim down just small enough so that it fits right behind your photo. Okay, so I think this is roughly 2.5 by 3.5 inches so that it fits behind the photo, maybe a little bit bigger than that. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to take a piece of my cardstock, trim that down so that it fits behind my photo. Might be a little bit more than 2.5 now that I think about it. Let me make sure. Nope, that ended up being 3. We might be okay with that. 3 by 4. No, maybe I did it 3 by 4. Okay, so let's do 3 by 4 to start. I'm amending while we go. So let's do 3 by 4 to start. This photo here, this little white pocket card needs to be able to fit behind here so that you have space around it to add some foam, because that's what's going to hold your journaling in place behind your photo. Okay, does that make sense? So if you have a piece of pattern paper behind it as your pattern paper layer, that should give you just enough space to be able to slide that in, this piece trimmed to 3 by 4, to slide that in and out from behind your photo. Okay? So what we're going to do is you're going to take some foam. I like using foam strips. I think these are from Doris. You can use whatever you can or whatever you have available to create a pocket. Also, if you have something to create a pocket with, you can totally do that, use that tool too. So what I'm going to do is take my photo that I already have layered with pattern paper, flip that over. I'm going to add in foam adhesive, one here to the bottom, one on the side because we're creating a pocket. Now don't close up the top because that's where your journaling has to pop in and out. one right here. Then what will happen is that card can pop in and out, just like that. Okay. If you don't have foam strips like this, you can use some foam, cut some strips. You can put a couple of little rows of foam dots here. It doesn't have to be crazy. The idea is you need to have it elevated so that you can pop in your journaling. Okay. You can handwrite your journaling, type your journaling, the whole nine. And this is a solution when you got a whole lot going on your page, but you don't necessarily have a lot of room to put the journaling. Okay, so let's go back to the layout real quick. So we have our pocket constructed. We have our 3x4 pocket card that's going to go right inside here. This can be a pre-printed pocket card that you handwrite your journaling in. This can be just a handmade pocket card that we're making for this project, and then you just write your journaling in or type it. It's completely up to you. And I'm going to show you where we get that little tab here in just a second. Let's go back to our photos. All right. The first thing we want to do is we're going to lay down this photo here that's at the top right. And we're just going to go ahead and adhere her right here. Okay? Boom. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come opposite here. And that pocket card that we made, or the 3x4 pocket card we made, we're just going to go ahead and adhere that down. Just like that. Okay? And that's going to go a layer a little bit under this photo here. But with this photo, what we want to do is we want to pop it up using a little bit of foam. So if you have some foam, go for it. If not, that's okay too. I think for the sake of time, I'm just going to use a couple of little American Craft foam dots. Boom, boom, boom. Get it done. This layout, so quick to throw together. And if you don't have 3 photos, guess what? You can use 2 photos and 2 pocket cards. And then you have a space for embellishing and a space for your title, or maybe a space for your journaling, or wherever you want it to be. So this is completely customizable. And if you're using a 12x12 layout, then you know what? Just expand the measurements a little bit so it can fill that space. So now we're going to put this photo down, and it's just going to layer a little bit over that white space here, and then also here for our pocket card. And that's going to go right around here. Okay. There we go. Then the card that we had to create a hidden pocket for our hidden journaling, that's going to go right here. Okay, and we're just kind of doing a little bit of an overlap there. And there we go. Okay. Now, to finish out your pocket card for your hidden journaling, you're going to come to your sticker sheet. And you're going to grab this sticker that says Traditions. Okay? And what I did was I dulled the sticky. You could also create another tab that goes behind this one if you have one of a similar style. You can cover this up with wax paper, whatever you do. But the idea here, because this is a sticker, is you want to dull the sticky in some way. So I'm just going to take my powder tool from We Are Memories Keepers, and I'm just going to take all that sticky away. You can also mount this on some cardstock and trim around it too. Okay? And then I'm just going to adhere it on to my page. Now, of course, you'll probably need some adhesive to adhere it on. What I'm going to do instead, because I want to add just a little bit more texture to my card, is I'm going to take my tiny attacher, this handy dandy little tool here. You can also use a stapler if you want to do this. You can stitch it on, which would be a lot of fun too. If you want to channel your inner Paige Evans and do a bunch of stitching, you can totally do that. So I'm just going to line that up there at the top. And I'm just going to add a couple little staples here. That's going to give it a tiny bit of texture. And then I have my pocket card ready to go for my journaling, and that should slip right behind here. And it serves as a decorative element with that tab that's up there. Alrighty. Okay. Deep breath. We're almost done. We're almost done. Now we're going to do some simple layered embellishing using the same techniques we've used this whole time. We're going to anchor, stack, detail, right? I feel like that should be like a rap song. I'm not going to rap today because, you know, I'm not going to do that. My family would like roll their eyes. Paige says, yay for stitching. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Felicia says, or as I'll do, just double mat the 8.5 by 11 for the 12 by 12. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Now, I'm type A, so I have to clear things out a little bit. We're in the home stretch. The last class of the weekend, and we're in the home stretch, my friends. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Okay, here's the one that's already done. Here's the one in progress. Let's go ahead and make this happen. Grab your thickers. Your woodland thickers. Love these things. As I mentioned, I have like 10 packs of these gold foil thickers because they're fabulous. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your title here on the little handmade pocket card that we made. This is a great way to use up those pattern paper scraps. You can cut into some of your existing 3x4 pocket cards because raise your hand if you have a ton of 3x4 pocket cards just sticking around. I mean, none of us, we all do. I know we all do. I have a buddy who just got rid of hers, all of them, the whole lot. But she's like, I don't use them, so she got rid of hers. I like making my own things because then you can make them custom. Alrighty, so whatever title you want to put there, just go ahead and let's go ahead and adhere that onto that little cluster. So we're going to put it at the sort of the top third here of our pocket card. Mine says Fall Fun. Yours is whatever it is it's going to be. I'm just going to take these stickers. I love foam thicker stickers because they stay on the page, unlike the chipboard ones. They don't always do that. Patty says, no, I don't want this to end. Oh, I know. I know you guys have been having so much fun. Listen, I have been looking at all of the posts. I have been looking at people posting selfies and pictures of their friends who have all gotten together this weekend. I know a lot of people feel a little bit more comfortable getting together in person. And people who have this fantastic setup and you have all of your pinwheels on your walls and special treats and all that. And I really feel that this is what this weekend is all about. It's coming together. It's having fun, whether you're just scrapping and relaxing at home by yourself or you have some friends. You know, I hope that you were able to take a lot of your time this weekend to just relax and scrapbook and enjoy this hobby because, you know, we all deserve it. We all deserve to just hang out and make things and have fun. All right, so we're going to slap this title right on this 3x4 pocket card. I don't have an eye for straight, so I don't know if this looks straight or not. And if it doesn't, that's okay because we're just going to live life, right, and make pages. I'm just going to put this on, trying to get it as straight as I can. And then exclamation point at the end because we did have fun that day. There we go. Get my little dot part here. We're just going to stick him right there. Alrighty. Make sure that whatever you put here, that you have a little bit of space right down here because we're going to bring out some more of those chipboard clusters. All right, so now we have our title down. We've addressed our journaling. We've got our photos down that are nice and layered. Look how fun that layered composition is. You can do the same thing on a 12 by 12 spread. You can do it even smaller, like on a traveler's notebook or 6 by 8. You'll just have to rescale and resize the elements that you have on your page. Grab that sticker sheet. We used a lot of stickers, my friends, so let's grab some more. Down here at the bottom, you'll notice there are two borders here. One's an apple border. We're going to go ahead and use that apple border. That's just going to bring a little bit of whimsy, and what it's going to do is anchor your elements here on your page. You can run this the width of your 8.5 by 11 spread if you want to. You can run it the width of your photo mat or this middle mat if you want to. It's completely up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the sticker here, and then we're going to trim off the excess, and then that extra part you can use for, you know, another project, maybe slap it on for a little bit of interest or whatnot. I'm just going to take a flat edge here and my little cutting knife, and I'm just going to lightly score it because I don't trust myself to try to cut this by hand. Lightly score it, very lightly, until I'm able to take the rest of that excess off. Some people are really good at bringing in their scissors and trimming. I'm not. It will end up like a hot mess. I can't do that. So I just take a ruler, and there we go. I'm just going to cut it to where it somewhat makes sense. Now, if you don't want that flat edge there, then what you'll want to do, and this is what I did on the example, was I just trimmed around the apple so that it's curved on both edges, which is probably what I should have done. I forgot that I did that. So I would come around here where that natural curve is of that apple and then trim it around. to kind of mimic that curve. Let me see if I can doctor it up. Oh man, can I? Yes, I can. Okay, there we go. So you'll just take it where the natural curve is and then just trim it so it looks like it's continuous. Now, if you don't like the apples, you can use something else or not at all. It's completely up to you. Okay, so now we have that done. Let's go ahead and work on the cluster. We have, back to our chipboard pieces, what we're looking for is this chipboard here that says, fall is my favorite, okay? And that's gonna go right here. We have enough space for that to go right here on our homemade 3x4 pocket card. Then you're also looking for this one that says autumn colors. And I'm going to use the white space on this photo, and I'm going to put that one right here. And notice that my clusters are to scale based on the fact that I'm making an 8.5 by 11 layout. I can't blow out this layout with this big old chunky cluster here, right? Because that wouldn't make sense. So I want to scale it down. And then up here, we're not going to have another chipboard piece, but we are going to grab a little pumpkin and a little apple from our sticker sheet. So let's go ahead. Now you can add a little bit of foam to these if you want to. In fact, we're going to do it for this one because this photo was popped up. So if you popped up this photo here, you're going to need to pop up your embellishment here so that it's equal height. We're going to go ahead and adhere this one down. We're almost done, and then we're going to head on over to Facebook and we're going to chat for a little bit. I'm going to adhere this down, boop, 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 right there. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of foam behind this one because my photo here is popped up. So I want to make sure that that embellishment is of equal height. I'm just going to put a little bit of foam here at the top. There we go. And yeah, that'll work. And then a little adhesive here. I'm just going to take my roller adhesive. There we go. And I'm going to take the backers off of that. You can use another apple from the sticker sheet to cover the outline. That is so true. Becca, that is a fantastic idea. Cover my little whoopsies there. Absolutely. Fran says, you are a wonderfully positive teacher. Love, love, love what we did. Oh, yay. Thank you so much. Have been scrapbooking for years, but still managed to have something to learn. That is so awesome. I love hearing that. I've been scrapbooking for a long time, but let me tell you, there is not a month that doesn't go by where I'm not learning something from somebody. Because there's just so much incredible talent out there. And sometimes people think of things that we don't even think of, or maybe we haven't thought of in a while and we're reminded of it. But that's what's so great about the creative community is that we're constantly learning and growing. Okay, so here at the top, we're going to grab this little pumpkin guy right here. And then we're going to grab another apple because, you know, it's fall. Pumpkins, apples, you know, all the good stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer these two guys. And you can do this before you even adhere it to the layout, okay? So what you're going to do is you have this little pumpkin here, this little apple, layer them, just like that. Bam. And you can tilt it. We can do a fancy tilt, hashtag fancy tilt, right? We can do that and look. So now all you have to do is bring it over and lay it right there. And it's to scale. It's not this huge, big old chunky thing, but it's to scale because our layout's smaller. I'm going to add a little foam behind the pumpkin because this photo has some foam behind it because we created, remember, that hidden pocket. So we had to pop up that photo just a little bit so that we can have our journaling go behind it. So I'm just going to put a little bitty foam there. Okay. And then, by the way, guys, I love what I do. This is just, this is probably the best career that I've had as an adult, outside of my former career working in child welfare. And I've always worked in training and development in some way. And I love teaching. I love working with people. And it's really fun to be able to teach creative concepts. It's not stressful. Like my last career was stressful. But this is a lot of fun. This is so much fun. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on with the sticker sheet. You have this floral sticker here. So we've got this guy situated for right now. We're going to come over here back to this cluster. We're going to take this floral cluster and we are going to, actually, no, not this one. This one's a smaller one. Let me revise that. We're going to take the larger floral cluster that's right here, okay? And again, the way it's designed, great impact. You don't really have to think about it. You're just going to go ahead and put this right behind the chipboard piece. Just layer that there. Add a little bit of white space there. Then you're going to take a label that says Fun Fall Days, and we're going to stick that and layer it right on top, just to add just another layered effect to that. Down here at the bottom, you'll notice, okay, we got that cluster done. Down here, you'll notice there's a little pumpkin. I grabbed that pumpkin from one of the pattern papers because there wasn't a die cut piece that was small enough, or a sticker piece to kind of fit there for what I wanted. So we have this little pumpkin here. You can grab whatever element you want. If you want to grab the pear, the apple, this little acorn here, but we're going to put a little piece here. I wanted to add a pumpkin right there. So what I did was I took, you know, that gingham pattern paper we have, I flipped that over. I'm going to fussy cut real quick one of these little pumpkins. Sometimes when you don't have what you need, you just make what you need in order for it to work for a project. So I'm going to do a little bit of fussy cutting now. I don't want to trigger someone who was fussy cutting for Vicky's class and she had y'all working this weekend. She had you guys working for, I heard the hashtag, what was it called? Cussy fussing or something like that. That was hysterical. I know Vicky had you guys hurting this weekend cutting all those things out. I know some of you absolutely enjoy fussy cutting. I enjoy fussy cutting as well. So I'm just going to have you fussy cut one little thing. If you want it, great. If you don't and you are traumatized from Vicky's class, I love you, Vicky, if you're watching. And you cut all those things out. Just know that you only have to do just one if you want to. I'm not going to have you fussy cut a whole bunch of things unless you want to fussy cut. Nothing wrong with that. Hashtag Team Fussy Cut. I'm definitely there for the fussy cutting. I don't always do it great, but you know. I know some of y'all were working, getting the fussy cutting in. Alrighty. There we go. We got a little pumpkin, and then of course you can fussy cut a bunch of these little elements out. Once you run out of stickers, just make your own. Fussy cussing. Yeah, there it is. Hashtag fussy cussing. That's so funny. I literally spit my coffee out when I read that. You're going to take your little element, whatever it may be. It could be that you fussy cutted an element from, you know, one of these pattern papers, because you do have some, you know, little elements on some of these things. It's completely up to you. Or you could take your sticker sheet and grab an element from there. And we're just going to tuck this right behind that chipboard cluster. I probably should have did that first, but that's okay. Okay. Last but not least, and then we're going to pop over to Facebook, my friends. You want to grab your little gumdrops. Love these. And we're going to add just a few here at the top, or just a couple. So I'm going to grab probably one of these larger ones maybe. I'm just going to tuck that there to my little tiny cluster. Your clusters don't have to be large. They can be small and layered, and that's perfectly okay, depending on the scale of your project. I'm going to put one right there. Okay. Then we're going to come over here. Notice we got that visual triangle going on. Even though we have a smaller space, we've got that visual triangle going on. Lots of layered gloriness going on here. I'm going to put two out here to the side. Okay. Pop that there. And as Kathy Zilski says, boop. We're going to boop that right there. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to add two more over here to the side. Whatever size of these ones you want to use, it's completely up to you. I think I have this little smaller one. There we go. Oops, I didn't want to boop. Boop. And with that project is done. So this 2 hours, you have learned my simple process for layering. We started out by creating an anchor. Then, of course, we stacked the deck, whether you were creating a pattern paper background or embellishment clusters or maybe layering your photos. And then we added in the details to bring that cluster together in a nice cohesive form. What'd you guys think? Drop an emoji in the chat before we head out to the Facebook to chat some more. What do you think? Doable? Can you do this? Of course you can. Of course you can. So here was, let me review the first project real quickly. The 2-pager, 12 by 12, utilizing those layering techniques that I told you. I also threw in a whole bunch of different tips and details and ideas. So take with it what you can, use what you want, let go of the rest if you don't like it. It's completely up to you. So here's our 2-page project. Absolutely love it. We took advantage of these chipboards the way it's designed because, you know, work smart, not hard. And then, of course, our 8.5 by 11 project as well. Okay? If you're joining us on Facebook right after this class, I'll see you there in a second. If you're not, thank you so much, and hopefully you'll be able to watch the Facebook Live on replay. I hope you guys got a lot of tips from this. I love layering. It's something that I've been enjoyed doing for many, many years, and it's a skill that I have developed over the years as well. So take what you can from this. I cannot wait to see your projects, so make sure that you share them with us because I'm so excited. We're going to go ahead and hop over to the Facebook group. Give me just a second as I switch over, and I'll see you guys there. Bye.